being goal orientated, whereby you want to achieve dreams,
is for you to bring them back to perspective on their value and their worth.
Don't you want to repeat? They're waiting.
Okay. Another thing that can really help, and it might seem far left field, is for you to bring them back to perspective on their value and their worth. If they, and we throw this around a lot, we see it on social media, but priceless value and worth. It becomes like an atom bomb eventually, where it just mushrooms out. Okay, you become entry level anger. There's healthy anger, obviously, that makes us not robots, but then there's unhealthy anger. If you allow your unhealthy anger to control you and you not control it, it starts mushrooming, advancing, leveling up to rage.
I'm really excited about this, and I want you all to help me welcome the one, the only, Lucinda J Valentine from the Tiny Room Consulting Therapy. Welcome.
Hey guys.
How are you feeling?
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm happy to have you here today. We're really excited that you're joining us on this wonderful episode, because this is the community that we're trying to build for students, a safe wellness, and also including humor, because I feel like we have a sense of humor, me and myself and my co-host here. So we're really excited on having you here. I just want to ask you one question before we move further. Just one question.
Just one. There's many.
For now.
We have this culture of asking, how are you? But we're asking it in a different way. I don't know. I don't know how you're going to answer it, but I'm taking my best shot. How are you in terms of a buzz that is scaling funding? Are you funded? Are you excluded?
Are you just talking with me in passing and me greeting and me saying, hey, how are you?
No, there's a lot. Like in terms of, do you know NSFAS?
Yes.
When you funded, you would be in a good mood.
Yeah, funded is
When
good
you were
mood.
excluded, you were having the worst.
Well, lately with all the stuff that's been going on, I'm sure
Yeah.
that the answers are very different to maybe 2-3 years ago.
You could be approved, you could be pending.
Because she's always pending and he's always...
Oh no, I'm approved.
Oh, upgrade, approved.
And then what do you call me? Because
Oh, he's approved.
So today you're not...
no, I'm not.
But
Trust
how are
me.
you?
I am exceptionally well. I feel very honored to be here. So
That's-
thank you for the invite. And just by the way, I didn't fly from overseas. I'm actually just a Cape Town girl from Goodwood, but now in Belleville. So actually, I didn't fly from nowhere.
But she flew with the transport she was in.
Ooh, Cape Town
Regardless of
traffic.
a car.
Cape Town traffic. Oh
Yeah,
my
and
gosh.
traffic is crazy.
Crazy.
Do you
morning.
drink coffee?
I would definitely drink coffee. Yes.
Oh,
Can
please
we
make our
please
guest
get
a
a
cup.
cup of coffee? Cup of coffee? Guys?
Wow, your team is amazing.
Thank
Yeah, I
team is
know.
amazing.
I know. Thank you so much for noticing.
They are amazing.
Rumza has been here for 14 episodes. He has never noticed that the team is amazing.
Gosh, I always give them a compliment
No,
every
Rumza,
time we are
no.
shooting. No, the thing is, you don't like you like to spotlight me. That's the thing.
okay.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a good thing, to get me.
No, don't mind him. He's famous now. Can you please tell us more about Lucinda? Yeah, Lucinda J Valentine. Who is she?
You can just call me Luce. Everybody calls me Luce.
Wow. I could have
Just don't call me Lucy, please.
Oh, Luce.
Just call me Luce.
And I'm
It's all
actually
good.
Melusi, so it was going to rhyme.
There we go.
Lucy. But it's fine. So I just want to know who's Luce and where do you come from? What inspired you to actually partake this journey that you in right now? And also, what are you looking forward to getting, or what objectives are you looking to achieving with it?
I think let's reverse engineer this. Let's start with the reason I'm sitting here is possibly to save someone's life.
Definitely. most
So
definitely.
my first objective being a therapist is to prevent suicide. So that's kind of my compass, pointing north every day.
Yes.
And then reverse engineering it a little bit further and it'll probably shock a lot of you because you're probably thinking I'm sitting here as a clinical psychologist. But just by the way, social workers can also specialize in mental health. So I'm actually a social worker. And I have been for many, many years, and started specializing a bit more. Working with young people from age 3 onwards already, or upwards, for many, many years, but doing your typical, what people think social workers only do, which is child protection, take children away and hand out food parcels. That's not what we do. You can specialize. So I started specializing in mental health after doing all different types of social work. And that's now the last 3 or 4 years. But even now, I don't see adult clients as much. I see predominantly students. And obviously students is a title that can cover primary school students, high school students, uni, college, varsity. Online, so I've got quite a few online students, either uni-wise or tertiary or high school. So yeah, I really have a passion for young people. They are in a bad space, self-harming, suicidal, depression, and we've got a lot to talk about, because depression is not just a word that just gets thrown out there like, oh, I'm depressed today, or I'm depressed. There's different types of depression, and some of it is not I wouldn't say not preventable, but at the same time it is structural in your brain. So there's quite heavy, almost want to say physiological, biological depression, and then there's obviously other types of depression that could be assisted, but then also my whole thing is about prevention.
Wow.
I'm all about prevention, so that's why I work with 10-year-olds and up, grade 4s and up. If I can help grade 4s to grade 7s, hopefully high school will be a bit better for everybody. I'm sure we have stories to share about high school.
Stories.
And I feel like the
high school was fun.
high school.
I'm so sarcastic. I'm so sarcastic.
There's also humor in the room. So I really, wow, I'm shocked. As actually by also the people that you're working with, the demographic you chose to target. It's people that are looking for growth, the people that are looking for, because I feel like as a child, people, the age gap that you're looking at, it's people that are still learning on how to live, and anything that happens to that person in that age, especially from the spaces of 3 years to 13 years old, the person they usually like reflect their daily life from that age going forward based on that. So if it's something bad, they end up turning out bad in the society. If they are able to deal with their challenges in a good way, they end up to being the best people in the community. So it's quite impressive how you actually tackling such an age group.
And sorry to break your word, but you also seeing it like a lot of people do that come in by our tiny room is, and even my young clients. So it's not just an adult thing, because youngsters have awareness, actually more so than my adult clients, a lot of the time. And it's not just one thing that is bad that happens to us to negatively affect us in our actions, which aka is your behavior, but I really don't like the word attitude and behavior. It really bugs me. It's our actions, okay? And those actions come out of your choices and decisions. But are your choices and decisions quality? Because then obviously your actions are not going to be quality. But if it's not, sometimes it's complex in the sense that it's a knock-on effect, it's a compound. It's like money. Our whole way of living is compounding of either good things, healthy things, or unhealthy things. So it boils down to your choices and decisions, but youngsters aren't being seen that they can make choices and decisions. But they have amazing brains. Like I was suicidal at 6, 7, 8 years old already. And I didn't know it was titled suicide. I just knew I didn't want to be here anymore. I was hoping I'd get hit by a bus or fallen on a knife, because I believed in the Lord. So I thought, hey, I better not go and try and kill myself. I'm not going to go to heaven. But, thankfully that saved me. But I was suicidal at that young age. And people are like, what problems do you have at 6, 7, and 8? Well, listen, people's home environments are not great. Regardless of our background, our upbringing. We were talking about grandmothers earlier. Talk about parents. I mean, it's great if someone even has a grandmother that cares enough to criticize them, but there's a lot of underparenting that's happening, and sometimes even overparenting to the point where my clients are suicidal because their parents are suffocating them. They don't exist.
So the worst fear that you have as a therapist is someone committing suicide.
You can't take that back.
Sure.
If we're not here today, we can't come. We can maybe scare each other and be ghosts. I don't know
Yo.
if that's even
I feel
is
like
a thing. But other than that, you're gone.
I feel like we're also going to have a lot of self-reflection.
Oh, you already, I can see your baby.
I'm like,
Ooh, she's
No,
just
she's
started and I'm
much
already thinking. Let me tone it down, okay? Let me
please,
bring it
please,
back. I'll bring it back, okay?
I just want to ask you, Luce, since I hear you that your motto is more of a prevention is better than cure, I just want to ask, what is your take on how people look down on mental health? So I am big on mental health because I had my own fair share. And I always come across posts on social media, and there's this thing that people like to say that you're not sad, you just broke. Or you're not depressed, you just broke. Like, what do you think is the take on that? Because people always patch up their mental health with money. It's always, I'm not okay until I have money. But they don't realize that when they do get the money, the problems don't go away, they're still there. So what is like your take on that? And how do you think we can tackle people that have that kind of mental?
It's such a great question. I love it. We're gonna geek out here today. I can just see it. I geek out on this so much, but it's geeking out to the point where, like I said, it's life threatening. But that is how people are living their lives. Is very superficial. So they're seeing things on the surface. They don't see the origin. They don't see that mental health challenge or struggles is not going to go away, even if they had 50 million rand. I've seen that. I've got a lot of friends that are heavily indebted. They think that if they sell everything up and they move overseas, that they're going to start afresh and everything's going to be fine. They're going with their physical self, with their problems that was managing that money poorly because their mental health is in such a bad state. Remember, everything comes out of your mind. Your nervous system is telling your brain and your limbs what to do. So your thoughts, your mind and your brain's two different things, but your thoughts and how your nervous system is in a healthy state or not is what's telling your physical body to do things. So you can't just sit with that choice and decision in your mind and then, okay, maybe sometimes you do have a choice and a decision sitting in your mind and you do absolutely nothing about it. Normally people talk about it. You know, they just talk about it a lot, but then they don't action it. So they might be saying, oh, when the money comes, things will be fine. So it's kind of like multifaceted. It's coming at them look at it like a web. We mustn't be tunnel vision about it. So the money factor is what they think is going to make them happy, but they're very quick to forget when they have the money, they're not happy. So they just dissociate and distract.
I also think, is it that they're trying to shy away from the responsibility or shying away from facing the fears or the problem?
But we must be careful to not just throw the responsibility thing out there so easily. It's like if you had to go to war with an empty gun, how the heck are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to do well in that war? It's maybe not the nicest topic to use right now because there's wars happening in the world, but for me, you have to be equipped. If you don't have a toolbox with tools to be able to go boss your life, it's not just a hashtag. It's not like living your best life is just a hashtag. We want it at the Tiny Room for every single client. But how can we have this expectation on ourselves and for others to go and boss their lives and live their best lives when you are like an infant in your muscles to be able to go and do it? So we don't give you coping skills at the Tiny Room because who the heck wants to cope with their lives? I don't want to.
You equip the
I want to
with
boss my
weapons.
life. I want to have bossing tools here and bossing methods. I want to manage and control my thoughts and my feelings on my terms. But I can only do better that every day if I become a better version of myself, if I progress and transform. I will never change.
But
I will always be the same person that I am today, but I can progress and transform in my actions, in my emotional state, in my thoughts. And that's how people kind of don't understand that.
I actually wanted to know something before. I wanted to know, how does one see that I'm depressed or I'm in this situation? What does it take for you to see that? What signs?
There's a couple of entry-level signs, okay? And obviously, like I said, there's more severe depressions that need to go and get assessed by a psychiatrist. And just so many people know, in South Africa, there's very few psychiatrists that give therapy. Psychiatrists are mainly there for assessing, diagnosing, and prescribing. They're medical practitioners. But an individual who is not knowing if they are depressed or not, are they just really sad, are they just really unhappy, or are they depressed? when your hygiene goes out the door, and I know some people say, yeah, but so-and-so is just bad with their hygiene. This is now a person asking themselves the question, and maybe they're not quite aware of it. They're so in that deep, dark hole that they don't even realize they haven't washed their hair for 2 weeks, or they haven't, cleaned up their room. But also when your appetite's gone. When you lose your appetite, your sleep is heavily negatively affected, where you basically have insomnia now. Or you struggle to fall asleep, you end up sleeping in, or you sleep a lot. Then also, complete withdrawal from society. Please understand people are introverts. They like to recharge on their own. So I have parents constantly checking in the room to see if their kid's okay. And I'm like, they're an introvert. They are busy decompressing after 8 hours being with a whole bunch of people at school. So, or in lectures and stuff like that. Like, you've had a lot of people around you. You want to just go and escape and recharge on your own. So introverts and taking yourself away from society is two very different things. So there's a bit of a combo of a couple of things that you would look out for. And heavily depressed people who are have suicidal thoughts or are planning suicide will start behaving in a way that you can pick up. It's like their last goodbyes, where they're either getting rid of their stuff, not maybe just selling it, but they'll just give it away, or they'll talk as though in their speech or in their narrative, they'll speak as though they're not.
Past.
Yeah, they're not talking as though there's future, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Or they won't input on the conversation if you're talking about 6 months' time or whatever. I know a lot of people will see on social media about this is what depression looks like and there's a whole bunch of smiling people. You're only seeing one dimension of that. Yes, some depressed people, or maybe, I don't know the stats, I'm a researcher, so I don't like to say these things just flippantly. I like to have numbers because I will get a lot of comments, I'm sure, after this podcast. On this episode, and that's just one dimension you're seeing on social media. There are red flags throughout months and years, and not everybody is a therapist and a professional that's trained to pick up the detailed flags. But I try and equip my parents of my kids, or at least family of my clients, to pick up on the things that are progressive, in a not a great way, to keep them here. So we're not having to watch them all the time, obviously. Our therapy is effective to help a suicidal client, but we can equip ourselves as friends, as family. And I try and equip educators, lecturers, teachers, so that when these kids are in their care for those couple of hours, that they're picking up on a few things that it shouldn't shock them that a grade 4 could possibly be showing some of these signs.
So I wanted to know, what are some of the basic strategies for that person to actually cope effectively
in that depression?
Yeah.
Woo, okay.
I also wanted to ask, you did mention that there is various type of depression, so I wanted you to maybe break down those kind of depression for us.
Well, let me start with chemical depression. Chemical depression is something that will have to be managed pretty much for that client's whole life. It's a chemical imbalance in their brain. So, and obviously I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a medical professional, so I mean, get one of them on, I can hook you all up and get a cool psychiatrist here to speak more into that. But let's put the chemical depression aside. There's severe depression. So you've got, I would almost say severe depression sounds severe, but it's actually more entry level. Then you've got your major depressive disorder or your manic depressive. Okay, and those are quite high levels or advanced levels of depression that also needs to be managed with meds, but also with great therapy. And it doesn't mean to say you have to be in therapy forever, every single week for 20, 30 years. You just need to make sure you've got your check-in professional, check-in professional, but you can still live a full life with major or manic depressive disorder. It's like my bipolar clients, they get their bipolar monitored by their psychiatrist and their meds and everything, and they come to us and they have great therapy and they can boss their lives even with bipolar. You probably are sitting with people here, I mean, or outside in your classes who have bipolar and you wouldn't even know.
So speaking of bipolar, I just want to know if it happens that, say, a person gets diagnosed with, I will go and say maybe type B bipolar, and they get meds and they go with it for maybe a short period of time, maybe a year or so, and they stop and they see that everything is better. They even start feeling like listen, this is what was making me depressed, referring to the meds. And then after a long period of time, maybe 2-3 years, it sort of hits them back that, okay, wait, I think this thing is back. But then they don't get
and it's not back, it's always been there. That's what's so hilarious. Because also it takes a while for meds to get your brain into that right balance.
Yeah.
So now and then you go off it, they don't wean themselves off it, a couple of months go by, they think everything's hunky-dory, because also you get into a default setting where for those that year or two that they were on the meds, when all of the hecticness or the chaos is taken away by the meds, they can think clearer. So they start doing life a bit better. And so they don't realize they're in a different default setting when they're on the meds. Then you take the meds away, the chaos comes back. They don't know how to manage life with the chaos. Does it make sense?
Yes. But now my question is, how would you help such a person for them to find themselves back?
I won't treat them if they don't stay on their meds.
Into like taking their meds again, because they would stop and not even bother, like convince themselves that I'm okay, and what was depressing me was the medication.
Are they under 18 or are they over 18? Because if they're under 18, I can pressurize the parents to make sure that they take it. But
if they're over 18,
if they're over 18, they're adults, and it's difficult because you can't hold anybody, accountable to take their meds. And what do you do? There's some things that aren't in our control.
Or maybe denial also.
Okay. So you were asking about the depression, on how do you do life while you're in depression.
I feel like we just have to refill our cup of coffee because this conversation is getting insane. Which is stay tuned, guys. Don't tune to another channel. Stay on this channel. We are back after the break. Get your cup of coffee also. Students, it pains us to know that 80% of you haven't subscribed to the channel. So we would like to ask you, whether you are a student, a lecturer, or professional working class, please hit the subscribe button down below. And just by that small act, you're going to be helping us to being the biggest student platform in the continent. So can you please subscribe and share the channel to more people, and we promise to give you the most valuable content that you've ever experienced and give you the best guest that you can. Thank you so much. Welcome back from the break. Once again, we with the one and only Lucinda J Valentine, and rooms are here, and also our ghost lady. So we're still on the conversation about mental health and depression and self-harm. So before the ad break, I wanted to ask this question. So we were speaking about bipolar, and I think we should resume from that conversation. But before that, I want there's a stat that I want our ghost lady to actually read for us about students. You can actually.
Okay, so I have a small article here that says university students are practically at high risk of depression. One of South Africa's studies estimate that 24.2% of university students have mild depression and 12.4% have moderate to severe depression. Globally, an average of about 21% of university students have major depression disorders. And personally, I think I'm one of them.
Wow.
Not that I'm bragging, but
what a way to end.
Wow. Should come through our 8-week therapy process. You'll be living your best life, I'm sure.
No, I haven't.
Are you going to come? She's inviting you.
I haven't, ever since I got here, I am keeping it to myself. That's what I'm doing right now.
Wow, you shouldn't.
But I wanted to bring awareness to something about this people being suicidal. I myself have been suicidal before. I have 3 attempts at trying to take my life.
Failed.
The first time I overdosed on pills, and guess what my body did?
You got like this?
No, I just vomited everything. I never even got to the hospital.
You vomited it yourself.
You know, I saved my own life.
It's awesome that you're being so open about it, because, suicide is not something that gets spoken about enough. Yeah. And it freaks people out that I'm so vocal about it, and I'm not scared to speak about suicide.
Yeah, like
because
my host there, he be shaking when people talk about suicide.
These hectic things need to be spoken about because they're not spoken about, and then life is lost, and you cannot undo that.
The reason why I talk about it most of the time is because I'm always thinking, well, I go to church, And in church, there's always this thing where they tell us, when you speak about it, you're not a victim of it. So I feel like the more I talk about it, is the more I set myself free from it. So that's why I tell people, but I don't.
Speaking out about it, and I get you completely. I mean, I kind of touched on that, it kind of saved me, my spiritual life obviously saved me from a couple of things. But speaking about it doesn't just make you not a victim of it. It just kind of still keeps you in that space because you're not progressing anywhere from that. You're just putting words to it now.
Yeah, okay.
You still have it. It doesn't just magically go away when you now speak about it. So you are still a victim of it if you're not knowing how to actually address it and manage it and also unpack it. Because a lot of people think things just go away. I will say it over and over and over again, it's a progression, it's a neglect, it's those stats. All I can think, as a researcher, as a social worker, as a therapist, as a geek, I listen to that and I think, who's doing studies on the last few years of primary school? What would those stats look like? Those stats sound severe now, but those are uni-age students. What about the high school age students? Those stats are still going to be the same. Do those, maybe in those last 4 years, 3-4 years of primary school, the stats should look a bit better. And then let's start getting things sorted in the early, because I've got kids in grade 2 and 3, which is what, 8-9 years old, who have had hectic incidents of trauma. And you know what was traumatic for them? Is their parents taking them out of school and putting them in another school and they had no more friends. Because your group dynamics, when you're that small, that's your world.
Oh, yeah.
Your group of friends there, because you're there most of the time, like 60% of the week. That is your world. And now you're going to put me in another school, take me to another city. They never recover from that if nobody's helping them know how to recover from that. Or they lose a family member, no one takes them through a grieving process at such a young age. It's an impairment that will continue to negatively manifest and progress. And then it becomes, you start seeing it in other ways.
That is true.
And also I wanted to touch on something. Currently we have also been experiencing a lot of people committing suicide in varsity. I feel like it's a topic that's not tackled. I feel like that's why we're actually having this conversation also with you today, because a lot of students are, especially most of them, personally, I've seen males struggling with this, because there's this stigma around men that you can't speak about, you can't be emotional. If you're emotional, you're weak. If you go to a therapist, especially for black male,
culturally,
they don't go to therapists, they don't speak, they just,
or Afrikaans men,
if you do that, you perceived weak, and that's how generally we actually lose friends and we lose loved ones, because of that stigma that the society has against people. So I just want to know, regarding like that stigma, someone who's in that position, they know they need help, but they can't do it because they're afraid of how they are going to be perceived. How can that person?
So there's a couple of things. There is a stigma around it, and we were just saying now earlier, people don't talk about it because it's like this, oh no, it's too hectic. Like people, it's messy. People like sanitary things all the time. We don't live in a sanitized world. It's messed up, okay? So we just all need to realize that, and people are going through stuff, and we cannot judge. Just because someone else handles a certain thing that happens to them better, or in their mind better than somebody else, we don't know what their deficit is. We don't know that negative compounding. They might be weak, and their mental fatigue is completely shot because we don't know. So we firstly cannot compare to now be, oh, someone's suicidal, or they attempted suicide, or what, oh, they are the weakest link, okay? So there's judgment in that regard, in that outfit. Men statistically are the highest statistic when it comes to suicide. Okay, I'm talking South Africa-wise, but I'm pretty sure if we did it globally, and it could be because men are supposed to be perceived as the stronger being, and there's cultural ties into that also. It's how we raise culturally, and it's not just in black culture. I've seen it with our Afrikaans male clients also. There's a blockage there, but I'm also seeing a great shift. Parents of youngsters are taking mental health more seriously. Maybe it's because it wasn't taken seriously with them when they were younger. And regardless of our backgrounds, I'm starting to see more male young clients, and also more male older clients reaching out. And it's not just when they're suicidal where you're so desperate, like, oh no, I don't want to die, I'm scared, like let me go get the help. For me, firstly, speak about it, but realize we need to actually then reach out. And the reaching out is what's difficult. I think there's another blockage there. How do you reach out? Where do you reach out? Like, how does this work? I'm sitting here now. I want to die right now. What do I do? Because if they've, most likely that person has tried previously to reach out to a friend, they've either brushed them off or kind of played it down, and it's like, oh no, it's not that bad. You can't say that tomorrow when that person's not there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying we must all be hypersensitive and constantly reply to people's messages. We need to equip the person that is in a bad space and say, you need to go and get help. This is the number. This is the place where you can start. This is step 1, 2, and 3. If they do not take that opportunity and something happens, you can go to sleep at night knowing that you did what you could. You
But
did what you
do
could.
they pay to get that consultation?
You do have different options, and this is what I love, okay? Because I said to you earlier, the Tiny Room's number 1 objective is suicide prevention. It used to be teen suicide prevention. Now it's just suicide prevention because we've got adults who are suicidal. Second is accessibility through affordability. Now listen, our therapy, and like I said, it's therapy, do offer play counseling, hence it's called the Tiny Room Counseling and Therapy. But for this topic here, it's therapy that's needed. We have made our therapy sessions affordable by keeping our operational costs really lean. Because why must therapy be so expensive? And why must you have a medical aid to be able to access great therapy? But for somebody that can't even afford our rate, you might not be able to get therapy unless you go to like Tygerberg or Kolbremer and take months for the administrative process, or Stickland or Lentige or whatever, and get into the system. You might have psychologists that change. Now, how do you build a relationship with somebody and go through a process of therapy? Remember, a process of therapy is what's going to help you, not 1 month in. No. You can't jump around. You need to go through shifts and through stages of therapy to unpack, reset, and reboot and go live your best life. But anyway, so there is that option, but there's pitfalls to that. So from a government public perspective, it's tough. What I would say is you can reach out to SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. They've got an emergency line, so please use that if you are suicidal. Their team is great on the phone, and they can plug you into counselors that do pro bono. 3 to 4 sessions of counseling is better than nothing. And it might be, well, pro bono is free, but then there's also Hope House, there's Cape Mental Health. There's opportunities to get affordable, so maybe 180 Rand a session, or a donation, or maybe free. Free sessions are normally lay counselors, so there's students busy doing their hours. It's a bit risky. They will not, hopefully they're ethical, they will not take on a suicidal client and work with students. Can't do that. So maybe a registered counselor, but even a registered counselor will be limited. Because the experience with this is also like, oh flip, this is too much for me. You know, like this is just hectic. Like, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's help you. You know. So it's a lot for me to say right now, but you get where I'm going with this. So we can't answer everything now, but we need to start there, speak about it, do this. This is amazing.
Well, some people find it hard to talk about their emotions. What advice would you give them, like to deal with the things they're dealing with, like depression and suicidal thoughts?
You can just
anxiety also.
Yeah, anxiety.
Yeah,
obviously, there's all these things that are busy happening, and they all connect and they all mushroom and become a huge gap or a blockage or just a weight. I always see it as this huge fat suit that you're trying to walk around with. It's obviously tiring, but I would say equip yourself so that when you see some of the telltale signs, if the person doesn't voice it, you can't force someone to be chatty about it. Okay, so they are listening. And if the innate human instinct is that we do not want to die. You know, in the wild, we would run. We wouldn't hang around so a lion can eat us. We would run. So we want to stay alive. We don't want to die. But everybody's just like moving away. Because now you're quiet, you look a little bit weird, like you're awkward, I don't know what to do with you. Okay, you're uncomfortable, you're an inconvenience, it's too messy for me, bye-bye. And then this person's sitting all on their own and their family don't understand them, and smile. You never smile. Like, who wants to hear that when they that deep in a dark hole, you know? So they're very judgy. So then they just sit with it and be like, this is my fate.
And some people actually resort to like getting into substance abuse.
There's a whole other episode.
A lot of alcohol, and I don't know. I wanna also take a look at that because I feel like people, some of them, they don't actually realize that, okay, now I'm taking this thing as my medication of running away from this problem. But it's actually, they don't know, say, okay, after I'm intoxicated, I'm going to also be sober, and then the problems are going to come back. So what's your take on that?
We've got so much to talk about on this one, but I'll try and keep it at the main points, the priorities. Because I also have to be careful that if I don't give some detail, it's going to be misunderstood, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm going to try and give you the main points, because I deal with a lot of self-harm and substance abuse, and I'm talking about drinking, smoking, eating disorders. It's self-harm is not just cutting.
This eating food.
Yeah, overeating,
eating-
undereating, binge eating and throwing up. Like, eating disorders is a form of self-harm.
So it's possible that I may be
You
because I like
intentionally
eating.
wanting to hurt yourself. Even being addicted to working out. I've had people that have been addicted to working out
At the
because of the burn, because of the exertion. It felt that pain was an addiction eventually, and that was for them a form of self-harm.
I know,
Because you can over gym, by the way, especially if you're also not eating properly. You can put your physical body into a bad space. But what I wanted to say is, a lot of people are making their lives a lot harder for themselves by not understanding your physical health and your mental health is hand in glove. So if you are putting substances into your body, and I will not talk about this now, but I'm very passionate about the amount of sugar that we eat, it has a serious detrimental effect to our mental health. It messes with your mood, messes with your thoughts, it messes with your anxiety, your depression. Like, sugar is a killer. But anyway, let's not go all down that pathway. But drinking also, it messes with the chemicals in your brain. So if you're already depressed, or if you are struggling with anger, rage actually, because I mean, there's different. Anger doesn't just happen one day. You start with irritation and frustration. If you allow irritation and frustration to control you, and it becomes like an atom bomb eventually, where it just mushrooms out again, you become entry-level anger. There's healthy anger, obviously, that makes us not robots. But then there's unhealthy anger. If you allow your unhealthy anger to control you, and you not control it, it starts mushrooming, advancing, leveling up to rage. And then blackouts happen, and then you go drink, and then you hear about these kids fighting and killing somebody with one big punch,
What
or
about
kicking them
what
dead.
about the anger of throwing things and throwing phones and
Yeah.
everything?
That's normally in the anger realm, not the rage realm, unless you're having a blackout while you're throwing the thing. But my youngsters, my young boys that I see, also, I was saying something earlier in the break about testosterone. Our bodies have chemicals in them, hormones. And if you aren't being active and burning off all these substances that you're putting in and all these hormones and getting everything balanced by having your body working for you and not it just consuming you, like, you need to be in control of it and not the other way around, you are going to be very irritated with all of that testosterone built up in your body. And you need to go and balance things out. You need to be active. You don't go do CrossFit. You don't have to go do a marathon, but
I feel like you're
just sweat it
speaking
out.
to him now because he
Why?
goes to the gym 3 times a day.
Oh, okay.
No,
We'll talk
It's
later.
not good.
I
talk
go to
later.
the gym to escape the reality. I just go to the gym because I love it.
And you also
Yeah.
eat a lot of sugar. It's not
Sugar,
good.
no, I don't eat sugar that much.
I mean, you have to be on a health buzz. I'm not coming here and advocating for like clean eating or
But
anything. It's just you need to be mindful of nutrition. I mean, our therapy has these 5 areas that we look at, and I feel it's healthy, and we really should have all therapists, and I'm pretty sure a lot of them do, is your physical health prong, which is your sleep, your hydration, your nutrition, and your movement. Your environments, you at uni, you at your home life, you at your like social life, you are maybe other environments that you're moving in and out of, okay? Then, and your relationship with yourself. The third one is your actions, aka your behavior. And the other one is your feelings / emotions. And then your last one is your psychological side, your mindset, your mental state, your thought patterns. So these 5 areas of your life, we are monitoring throughout our process. You need to be balanced as best possible, or at least know what that should look like. And then the accountability is yours once your tool belt is full to enhance and upgrade, like you were saying earlier, upgrade on your tools. Because you can't just, do a Nokia 310 for the rest of your life, trying to do
iPhone.
40 years old on a Nokia 310. You're going to need an iPhone, whatever it is now.
15, like.
But nobody's upgrading their tools. Nobody's understanding that they're missing half of their tools.
That's true.
Does it make sense?
That's true.
Okay, as long as
But
I'm making sense.
Is it possible that someone has like experienced depression and without even know? Because I don't think I've ever experienced depression, but maybe I have. Maybe I just didn't notice.
You can have bouts of depression. I mean, I've had 2 bouts of depression. One was when I had a physical health situation at about 33. And I mean, that's fairly young. And I was supposed to go for an operation, and I really believed it was going to take this nerve pain away. And nerve pain is not muscle pain, by the way. It is excruciating. And the operation got declined. And I drove away from that hospital crying. And for 3 days, I was in a very, very bad space. But thankfully, I knew what was busy happening. I knew how to process through it. And I also had to just let it do its thing. Then I did my master's. And I got royally screwed over on my research, but we won't go into that. And the mark that I got was really upsetting for me. It's like almost 3 years of my life that a master's is about 2 to 3 years depending. And we had COVID and it was just a mess. And my mark was really disappointing. And for 3 weeks after that, I went very quiet. Wow. I didn't want to speak to anybody. And I mean, that was Christmas time, so Christmas Day was interesting. But I, for 3 weeks, just went with that wave of the depression because I knew that it wasn't in a bad space. It wasn't going to consume me, but I couldn't fight it because it just needed to actually take its time and work its way out. But that's me who's a therapist and knows. So you can have bouts of depression, but then a lot of people, the dips, they start lengthening and they start linking. Then all of a sudden you're sitting with a whole year, 2 years, 3 years, and then it just continues to grow from there. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so I just want to know, as a person on the outside, how do I help someone who's having those bouts of depressions? If someone is having a small moment, like for example, your friend comes and tells you, the lecturer said I should sleep with him for him to give me good marks, or whatever it is that students come across when it comes to their academics, and it doesn't make them feel good, and they end up getting those small seasons of depression, or it's something that it's now it starts to build up. Maybe it reminds them of something that happened in high school or something that happened at home. How do you, as a friend, sit down with that person to get them to say, okay, friend, this is what's going on and this is how I would tackle it? Like, how do you talk to your depressed friend as a friend on the outside?
So as they're having this flare-up, you also need to be mindful that if they're having often flare-ups, you can't constantly be their counselor or their therapist, okay? So you need to firstly, like I was saying, you need to be that accountability or love them enough to say, go get the professional help for the really big stuff that's now being brought up by this incident. But as this incident happened, or the situation where the emotions are completely all over the place, you can only listen. You know what I'm saying? You can only listen. I know we're quick to want to give advice, but I always say we haven't gotten all of our things in place, which we probably never will. We can't be so quick to give advice. If they're asking for advice, I always say to people, all the answers are there inside. You are just overwhelmed with the current situation. Let's just talk it through, or maybe go do something together, whatever. Time also helps. Like sometimes even driving here today, I was like getting annoyed and I was fine for a while, maybe play some music, but eventually when I got here, I started slowly but surely calming down, being more present. But I've also got mental fitness to know how to center myself and not allow things to consume me. Another thing that can really help, and it might seem far left field, is for you to bring them back to perspective on their value and their worth. If they, and we throw this around a lot, we see it on social media, but priceless value and worth. That no matter how awesome they are or how awesome we are 1 week, we tick all the boxes, it goes up. 1 week we screw up royally and it goes down. That is not priceless value and worth. You didn't get more than me when you were born. I didn't get more than any of you. We were all born enough. Now, if you don't know that you're enough, that comment from that lecturer, that request from that lecturer is going to affect somebody like that. It should actually be like, not a chance, like, give me the mark that you want, like, it will work out fine, or I'll report them, or whatever, But if you don't know you're enough, these type of things throw us off track very easily. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. So, like, during the break, we sort of encountered Umelusi asking time and again Kiki if she's okay. Every time he keeps on saying people are reflecting, and it's a joke for a moment at the time being, but something just came to my mind when I thought about Kiki, and I thought about the episode when we were recording with Kiki, and she was mentioning about mental health and anxiety and how people take an approach when it comes to her. So now I wanted to ask a question. How would a person like Kiki respond to heterosexual people when like they start hating upon her and causing that anxiety for her and that whole stress that could be a build up from maybe I come with my own thing and I give her the bash, whereas a week ago somebody did the same thing as I did, and the following week it's worse than that. How would she get herself in a state of mind where she's like, okay, this is what these people are doing to me, but it's okay because it does not make me any different or any less than what they are? How do they?
You can't have that happen in the moment when you don't have the tools. You need to go through the process to get the tools to better handle that. And some days you'll handle it better because maybe your physical health is in a better space that day. You haven't had as much sugar. You haven't had as much caffeine. Caffeine screws up your anxiety, by the way. And people can't make us feel anything. We already have it going on inside. So they're just drawing out what's already there. And we aren't anxiety, we have anxiety. Okay, we must stop saying, I am bipolar, you have bipolar. Okay, you have depression, we aren't depression. So we need to know what is it that we've got going on, know the variables, be clear on that, and get equipped to see how much of it can we address, and you get better at it. It's like when we were babies, we flopped about, then we crawled, then we started walking, then we got better at that. And I mean, even now, we're not very good at being strong in our bodies, so we're progressing in our physical health all the time. So when it comes to mental health, mental fitness, maybe battling with a mental illness, that's mental illness, mental health, and mental fitness are three very different things. Okay, and we need to know that also to be able to not throw all these terms out there and expect people to be in a certain way. It's very complex, but also very simple at the same time. I don't know how to explain that, but...
I actually have a follow-up question on that. Let me put it into a scenario. If, let's say, Kiki goes through that and then she resorts to self-harming herself, which we see more often with the female cutting themselves on their hands, thinking that that's going to take the pain away from them. I just want to know the experience that you have with self-harm, and also what can you advise to those people who, because there's a stigma that's created around self-harm, that it makes you to be at peace and reduces the pain or takes away the pain for that moment. But I just want to know what kind of experience do you have on it, and also what can you advise on the next person?
So just three things quickly, and I realize I didn't touch on with the whole Kiki situation, is also, it goes back to that, if you know that you are enough, other people don't affect us as much. You're comfortable 100% in your own skin, no matter what you identify as, what you're dealing with, what's going on. You just don't give a rip.
Yes.
And it sounds awful. I'm not saying we're not compassionate. We're kind, loving, compassionate people, but we don't constantly put our feet and our ball in everybody else's court. We keep our feet, we keep our ball in our court. We love people from afar. Just be comfortable in your own skin, know that you're enough. Then also, you said that a lot of females, and I don't know your exact words, but it seemed like you were saying a lot more females self-harm and cut than men. My clients are 50-50, by the way, when it comes to my male clients that actually cut. So it's not a gender-related or a sex-related thing. It's people are self-harming, and like I said, there's many forms of self-harm. Like a lot of people don't realize that drinking and vaping or smoking or doing drugs or eating disorders are a form of self-harm. It's not just cutting. But also we need to understand these three types of self-harm. Or not three types of self-harm. That sounds awful. Not types. There's three reasons for self-harm, or three groupings. One is, a client of mine is self-harming or cutting because they loathe themselves. They want to do harm to themselves because they really hate themselves.
But why would you do that?
Because you want to do harm to yourself because you hate yourself so much. You're like, I am an awful, ugly, nasty human being. I'm going to slash.
Can I put something into context?
Yes,
also?
tell me.
I want to be honest and transparent with myself. I've never experienced anything like that. And like that's why I feel like, personally, I feel like I can't reach that point whereby I have to harm myself or commit suicide, because I believe in life, if you have like a clear vision or an objective that you want to attain, that's going to drive you enough to actually think that there's more to life than actually what I'm going through.
But you've got that area of your mind down. Where don't you have it down? Because then I'll maybe also like pick at that. So now you're looking at it from a perspective of, I've got it down. I don't have suicidal thoughts. I don't self-harm. Like, how? But now if I had to, you go see someone else that's got it down in a certain area and you don't, they can't understand why you don't have that part of your life down. You know what I'm saying? So we must really stop having this filter of comparison, weakest link, I'm stronger than you, what. There's always logic and understanding behind like why. And you get what I'm saying? But now the other two groupings of self-harm is, so I said the loathing and the hating. The other one is the soothing. So you have emotional, psychological pain, physical. It sometimes feels so physical that your heart is so sore inside because of your emotional, psychological pain that you don't know you don't have the tools to release it. So you physically hurt yourself for that soothing. But then you get to the third grouping. It becomes a habit. Just like smoking, just like drinking, just like drugs. That cutting becomes your blankie. It becomes your pacifier. It becomes the habit.
Did you hear that? Also drinking, it's a self-harm.
Yeah, like vaping.
So, and vaping, it's a self-harm. So
I have one more question.
For me, it's caffeine and sugar.
Caffeine and
self-harming.
And I really drink a lot of coffee.
And I think you should stop. Since you had now that caffeine can be.
But I'm better than what I was, and you can always be better than where you are now.
The real cup of respect.
You can move forward and you can progress. We're all trying to be better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think you should seek help, man.
I just want to ask one more
Reach
question.
out, seek help.
I wanna ask one more question, which is regarding the support and the resources. What can students do if they feel like what resources are available for students that are going through mental health and also depression that students can utilize?
I don't want to answer your question with another question, but I'll get to it in a sec. But I want to find out from you guys, with your institution, your educational or your tertiary institution that you study at, what is your current system in-house? How do students and I take it you all at CPUT, I don't know, yes. So what's the process at CPUT to access counselors and student mental health support on campus? Because I'm hearing this a lot over the years, and I work with a lot of universities and a lot of high schools and primary schools and all kinds of academic learning educational institutions, is that your in-house system is so long in admin or getting applied and getting in before you see somebody. If this is a high risk, they try and do whatever they can. But maybe answer that first, and if you don't know, you need to go and find out so you can equip your listeners.
Definitely.
Or your viewers.
Definitely.
And then I can always layer on that afterwards on out of campus. What can you then reach out to that's affordable, that's, some options, and resource you guys.
I think now we have just 1 minute.
Yes.
So with this 1 minute, I just want you to say final words to our viewers, and then also you can tell them where to find you if they need to get in contact with you and get help.
So firstly, definitely reach out. It's the best thing that you will do for yourself. And if you're sitting and you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're starting to think, oh, maybe I do need help, obviously reach out to you guys, and you can always reach out to me. But at the Tiny Room Therapy on Instagram, you can DM us on there. You can WhatsApp us on 071-673-8641, or you can email us on info@thetinyroomtherapy.com. So there's ways that you can get hold of us, and we can hopefully resource you. But I'd say, first and foremost, you are the point of call. Find out what is accessible on campus, what you can access in out of that, and I can always send that through to you all. But just know that if you want to live your best life and boss your life, it starts with being vulnerable enough, which isn't weakness. Vulnerability is the strongest and most powerful thing that you will ever do to start the journey of actually being in control of your thoughts and your feelings, for sure.
Wow. I think that's it from us. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Rumza Uzoivali Show.
Shy guy Billy, guys. Shy guy one. Just
What's
like
late?
the
You wanna
real
say something?
talk. Nabo Rumza. And don't forget, cup of coffee.
The real cup of respect. Nescafe.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers, Ghost Lady. Do you want to say something?
I wanted to say for them to contact the counseling at CPUT, they should contact 021-460-3237 or 021-959-6152.
Thank
That
you
is
so
from
much,
us.
guys. We love you so much. Keep the love, comment, and we're definitely going to have her next time. I know you already have that question, so it's already answered. But comment your favorite parts of the video and then tell us what you related to and what you need help with.
Don't
And
forget
then
to-
we'll attend to you.
Don't forget to press the button.
Notify.
Subscribe.
Notification
Follow us.
bell.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Cheers.
much. Till next time, Maisha Gabili. Guys, adios.
Thought scenes.